Hello, everybody. Welcome in for another edition of the Chad Valdez YouTube channel, and I'm your humble host, Chad Valdez. And so I invite and encourage you to subscribe to the channel here if you haven't already. And also, for further deeper dive into the sports talk that yours truly conducts via Apple Podcast on The Real Talk with Chad Valdez or at The Real Talk with Chad Valdez on Apple Podcast, I invite and encourage you to follow that platform as well as this one here for a look and a listen. And this Chad Valdez YouTube channel segment is now in session. So a lot to get to in here, a lot to get to. Going to cover my Dallas Cowboys' big win over the NFC East rivalry, the rival Philadelphia Eagles, the rotten, stinking, filthy Philadelphia Eagles that they are. Big win on Sunday night, NFL NBC. It was another primetime game that the Dallas Cowboys had. Shocker, right? And coming on here tonight, Thursday, December the 14th, it is a complete annihilation. It is a stop in a mud hole in the Los Angeles Chargers' ass and walking it dry, as Stone Cold Steve Austin would say. You got the Las Vegas Raiders absolutely taking it to the Chargers. So within 5 minutes after the game is over, it's a mid-fourth quarter, 63-14, everybody. Unbelievable. Unfucking believable. 63 points in an NFL football game. 5 minutes after it's over, the owner for the Los Angeles Chargers should walk down from a suite that he's in to the visiting locker room and tell Brandon Staley, "You're fucking fired." And he shouldn't even be eligible to fly with the team back to Los Angeles, which is not a really long flight, which is really not a long flight from Vegas to Los Angeles or Los Angeles to Vegas. Hell, they could have chartered a bus out there, but that's too much of a risk for the players. And so I wanted to throw that in there. Absolutely unbelievable. You got the Vegas Raiders coming off a humiliating loss on their own end at home this past Sunday to the Minnesota Vikings 3-0. 3-0 that they lost. And now they turn around 4 days later, 3 full days of rest, and come on Thursday, and then they have an offensive onslaught. What the hell happened in those 3 days of the Vegas offense? What the hell happened in the 3 days in between of the Chargers' last game? I mean, unbelievable. This has got to be the most humiliating, embarrassing, worst loss in NFL history. I didn't look to see what the biggest difference of a game, if you will, the highest margin difference or whatever, points scored versus points allowed in an NFL game, but this has got to be up there, if not the number one. So I wanted to throw that in there. On this one here, I'm going to be talking about my Dallas Cowboys' big win, as I say, over the rotten, stinking, filthy Philadelphia Eagles that was on this past Sunday night. I'm going to talk about the rest of the games that they have to a degree that the Cowboys have a very good opportunity. It's right out there in front of them to win out and to be NFC East champs. Now, it baffles me that they can still win out and the Eagles can win out, but the Eagles are going to get the NFC East championship and get a one home game, maybe a first round bye. I don't think so. That just might be the 49ers and the Eagles, but it just might be the Cowboys too. But the Cowboys lost to the Cardinals, which that game they just weren't ready to play. They had the loss versus the 49ers. I actually meant to dive deeper into this here in just a moment, so that's kind of like an opening monologue, if you will. So on this one here, as I just mentioned, that's what I'm going to be talking about. And also the latter part of this, and I got to find a way to give my Dallas Stars some more commentary talk, some more Dallas Stars talk. It's a team that I do cover. It's a team that I used to work for back in the day. It seems like just many moons ago when that was. And also, I'm just a huge Dallas Stars fan. But right now, the end of the season, with college football bowl games going on, just wrapped up conference championship weekend, and we got the tail end of NFL going on. So NFL football is still taking precedent all over all the other major professional sports. And I don't cover the NBA at all. The NBA is a fucking joke, and it is woke. I don't cover them at all. So that's going to wrap up an opening monologue, if you will. Really, I reserve that for the audio platform that you can find the Apple Podcast, The Real Talk with Chad Valdez. And so I'm also, the latter part of this is going to give a rundown of the entire college football bowl games. I'm going to give you the name of the bowl game, which some of those names are just fucking ridiculous. Absolutely. They're getting out of hand. And the opponents, and the dates of it, and I will be given I will predict who's going to win. I'll give you the team winner, if you will, all the way to January the 8th national championship game, which I've already said. If you followed me on my audio platform, I gave that on Monday, or was it the one before, that I'm going with Alabama, to win it all. I got them to beating the Michigan Wolverines in the semifinal playoff game out there in the Rose Bowl. That's going to be an amazing setting. And then I got them taking down the Washington Huskies. Yes, I predict the Washington Huskies are going to beat the Texas Longhorns. And so I'll be giving that rundown here in just a moment. So let's go ahead and just take a sip here real quick. That's not water. That is tequila. Sipping on that. And stay tuned for the very end of this, everybody. I'm going to have something very special that I haven't done. And I thought, you know what? Let's have 2 drinks tonight. One's not enough. 3's too many. So stay tuned in for that. I'm really going to enjoy what I'm going to be doing here for the listening and watching audience. And so let's go and start talking about my Dallas Cowboys. You know, they had the big game, the big win over the Eagles. You know, Dak Prescott was the best player on the football field once again. He had the 2 touchdown passes. We get the ball to start the game. Philadelphia, they win the toss, and they elect to defer to the second half for the Cowboys to get the ball first. That's probably a bad mistake because they forgot that Cowboys have won 14 straight at home. Oh, there's something that I got to get to about a sportscaster, sports anchor here in Dallas-Fort Worth, Mike Ducey. Now, I don't want to go off the rails on it, but it really fathomed me of what happened. And Mike Ducey, you know, he's been around a long time of what he does with KDFW Fox 4 lead sports anchor. He's actually been a guest on The Real Talk with Chad Valdez on my audio platform via Apple Podcasts. And so he's been a guest with them. He's been a guest on the program on my show. But something that he did, I'll get into that here in just a second. I won't forget, trust me. So, yeah, the Cowboys, you know, we got the ball to start the game. And the Eagles, that was a mistake on their end because we won 14-0. We won 14 straight games at the Palace in Dallas as JT the Brick via Mad Dog Sports Radio and his own JT the Brick YouTube show right here. JT the Brick show on YouTube. I invite and encourage you to follow that. It's fantastic, unbelievable content that he provides. So, yeah, that going on, 14 games in a row. The Cowboys get the ball, march right down the field. My man, my quarterback, Dak Prescott, number 4 in the field, number 1 in your heart. You know, commanded his troops, the leader of the team, the best player on the field once again Sunday night. Marches right down the field. Marches right. I got the neighbors walking back and forth, whatever. You got that going on all the way marching down the field, and then also you have another touchdown pass that he threw. So it was Cowboys lights out from start to beginning, and then the Eagles just couldn't catch up. So a lot of people were kind of being negative Nancy. Well, the Cowboys didn't even score a touchdown in the second half. Well, you know what? The Philadelphia Eagles offense didn't score at all. They didn't score a fucking touchdown at all. It was only the special teams. The offense doesn't score 3 points. The special teams does. The field goal team. Field goal team is out the offense, everybody. And then you have the touchdown return for a fumble of the defensive lineman of the Eagles. That was the only points. And so the defense of the Cowboys kept the Eagles offense out of the end zone all night. So it's amazing that people want to talk about the opposite score in the second half. You got the 3 field goals by an automatic weapon, an automatic kicker, if you will. That is a weapon. Brandon Aubrey, 60, 59, 50, and a 45. So a 60, 59, a 50, and a 45-yarder. Unbelievable. And a lot of those would have been good for another 10, 15 yards, each one of them. So, you know, the Cowboys, they did what they were supposed to. You know, Dak said it was not his most impressive game, was not his best game, and we all could see that. They weren't throwing the ball down the field. They really didn't have to. They had a couple that one had the CD and one was a setup for a touchdown to Michael Gallup. The play before that was about a 30-yard pass, a bullet from Prescott to Brandon Cooks down right before crossing the plane, so you had that as well. And then a rushing touchdown to make it 21, 3 touchdowns, 24-6, and the final score 33-13. So Cowboys have a chance to win out. They have a chance to win out. They have a chance to be NFC East champs if they win out on the road in Buffalo, which fathoms me that Buffalo Bills are favored. Turnover machine Josh Allen drives me crazy. And then you got on the road at Miami, and luckily it's not in August or September. There's a video out there that the Miami Dolphins have a really good field advantage of how that stadium is built, Hard Rock Stadium, and the visiting team, no matter what time of day, unless it's a night game, the visiting team is in the sunlight all 3+ hours of a game, and the temperature on the field is like 30 more degrees higher than it is on the Miami sideline. 30 degrees warmer on the visitor sideline than the Dolphins, and so that's a competitive advantage. And so after that, we have the last home game of the regular season versus the Detroit Lions, who are descending at the wrong time of the year. They lose to the fucking Chicago Bears. I mean, my God, that is absolutely awful. And I like Dan Campbell, the head football coach of the Detroit Lions as well. Former Texas A&M tight end, former Dallas Cowboy tight end, and former Detroit Lions tight end as well. So, and then the last game of the regular season, as I mentioned earlier, is at Washington at that dump of a stadium. What do they call it? FedEx Field, Landover, Maryland. And so we'll have to see if the NFC East is already going to be wrapped up by then, or may come down to that last day of the regular season, if you will. So I wanted to get that in there. I would love to. I clicked off of the game that was going on, the Raiders and the Chargers, and so Brandon Staley has got to be fired after this game. So other thing that I wanted to get into was the college football rundown. I was going to have some other NFL commentary, but I will reserve on that. And to close out of talking about my Dallas Cowboys, this is something that many of us have heard times before, but it is a mainstay. It is a motto of the Dallas Cowboys. It is something that first got said in 1992, if I'm not mistaken, of a former head football coach of the Dallas Cowboys. I'll probably give you some really damn good clues. If not, then you're living under a rock. But here it is as I close out commentary of my Dallas Cowboys. How about them Cowboys? And, Jimmy Johnson said, I got to say something else. I got to close it out in the best way. And he said it was on a whim that he said that. And it didn't cultivate his career for the remainder of the Cowboys, because he went on to win a Super Bowl in another back-to-back. But that quote right there, how about them Cowboys? Absolutely a quote which will live in Dallas Cowboys infamy. So I'm going to go ahead and get into the rundown of the college football bowl games, and that'll be the last of this segment on the YouTube channel here. So I have the entire rundown, and it's hard to memorize every single thing like this. When I do my on-air sports talk, I have so much of it, everything in mind, what I do want to comment on, and a couple of notes here and there, and maybe with the stat or whatever. So pretty much 80 to 90% of what I comment on when I do the full-blown commentary via the Apple Podcast avenue, I have it up here. Don't have to look at notes, whatever. But this is, there's 43 bowl games, including the national championship game. So to memorize 43 matchups, the name of the teams, their record, and the name of the bowl game, that's fucking impossible. Maybe Rain Man's the only person that could do that. So let's go ahead and take another swig here. Ooh, that's good tequila. That'll warm you up, everybody. So the first one out of the gate, out of the chute, starts on this Saturday, 2 days from now, because right now it's Thursday, December the 14th. There's an alarm clock going off. Georgia Southern at Ohio. Georgia Southern. It's not, I'm going to say, the designated road team that the whole team's always last, right? So you got Georgia Southern 6-6 versus Ohio 9-3 Myrtle Beach Bowl. So I'll take Ohio on that one. Howard, never fucking heard of them. All due respect, versus Florida A&M. The Cricket Celebration Bowl, that's ridiculous at all. Are you really even going to want the bowl ring on that one? Howard 6-5, Florida A&M 11-1, Florida A&M. You got Jacksonville State 8-4 versus Louisiana Raging Cajuns at Arnell Carriers Bowl. That's basically a home game for the Raging Cajuns. But I'm going to go with the Jacksonville on that one. You got Miami of Ohio 11-2 versus App State. Woo, man, that is a tough one. That is the Norcross from, that was the Avocados from Mexico Cure Bowl. Oh my God, that's absolutely crazy. That is a tough one. That really is a tough. I haven't gotten the winner on that game yet. So I'm going to go with Appalachian State on that one. They're 8-5 versus Miami Ohio 11-2. New Mexico State, the Aggies in New Mexico State, not the real Aggies. That's the real Aggies right there. Texas A&M. A&M. So you got them 10-4 versus Fresno State at the New Mexico Bowl. I'm going to go with New Mexico State. It's basically a home game for them. Barely have to travel. You got the UCLA Bruins in an embarrassing bowl game before Christmas versus Boise State. You got the Starco Brands Los Angeles Bowl. I'm going to go with the Boise State on that one. You got Cal versus Texas Tech. I can't stand Texas Tech. I hate the Red Raiders. So absolutely, I'm going to go with Cal and that one. You got the Western Kentucky versus Old Dominion at the famous Toastery Bowl. I'm going to go with Old Dominion because I've been there to Norfolk, Virginia before twice, and I ran the bleachers at the stadium twice as well. That was on the 18th, and then on Monday, the only bowl game on Monday. And then you got December the 19th on Tuesday, just one. You got UTSA, Jeff Traylor and his Roadrunners, and the Scooters Coffee Frisco Bowl up here in Frisco versus Marshall. I'm going to go with the Roadrunners in that. Jeff Traylor, a very well-known former Texas high school football coach there in Carthage. And so you have next after that, South Florida versus Syracuse. Interim A&M head coach, he's going now to be the defensive coordinator, Elijah Robinson. You got South Florida versus Syracuse in the Boca Raton Bowl, and I'm going to go with Syracuse in that one. You got Georgia Tech versus University of Central Florida. They're both 6-6, and the Gasparilla Bowl, Georgia Tech on that one. Haynes King, former A&M quarterback. You got Troy. This is starting next Saturday. Troy 11-2 versus Duke. Former Duke head football coach Mike Elko, now A&M's new head football coach. I'm going to go with the Blue Devils in that. Troy, I don't think is going to see the type of competition all season long that they will be versus Duke Blue Devils in the 76 Birmingham Bowl. Arkansas State versus Illinois. They're both 6-6 in the Camellia Bowl, Northern Illinois in that one. James Madison 11-1 versus Air Force in the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl, 8-4 Air Force are. Maybe my son and I, Ryder, my 15-year-old son, Ryder, and I are going to go to that one because it's here in Fort Worth at TCU's Amon Carter Stadium. I'm going to go with James Madison in that one. Georgia State and Utah State, 6-6 in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. You got South Alabama versus Eastern Michigan. They're both 6-6 in the 68 Ventures Bowl. I'll go with South Alabama. Utah 8-4 versus Northwestern in the Las Vegas Bowl at Allegiant Stadium. I'll go with Utah Utes in that one. You got Coastal Carolina, both 7 and San Jose State 7-5. I'm going to go with in the Hawaii Bowl. I'm going to go with San Jose State because Coastal Carolina are going to have to go from Carolinas all the way to fucking Hawaii. Most of those players have never been out of the country, let alone on a flight that long before. San Jose State gets the nod in that one. Starting December the 26th, you got Bowling Green, 7-5 versus Minnesota, 5-7. There's that one 5-7 team that gets a bowl game in the Quick Lane Bowl. I'll go with Bowling Green. Texas State versus Rice and the First Responder Bowl up in Dallas, Gerald G. Ford Stadium. I'm going to go with Texas State in that one. You got also in the 26th, Kansas Jayhawks versus UNLV and the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. I'll go with the Jayhawks in that one. Starting on December the 27th, the Fighting Texas A&M Aggies 7-5 versus Okie State, a rematch of the 2019 Texas Bowl, which my son and I were at that one. I'm going to go with A&M in that one, of course. Vodtech versus Tulane, 6-6 versus 11-2. Tulane in the Military Bowl. Tulane is not gonna. They haven't faced that kind of competition all season long. So I'll give the nod to the Hokies. North Carolina versus West Virginia, 8-4 at the Duke Mayo Bowl. I'll go with the Mountaineers in that one. Saw them versus playing TCU early in the season this year, and also 2021. West Virginia won both of those. Louisville Cardinals versus USC at the Holiday Bowl. Pretty much a home game for USC because that'll be played at Petco Park in San Diego. 7-5 versus Louisville, 10-3. I give the nod to the Trojans, even though they're just a bad team. Starting on the 28th, you get SMU 11-2 versus Boston College, 6-6 in the Fenway Bowl. Wonder where that was going to be played at, Fenway Park. Basically a home game for Boston College. You got the Rutgers versus Miami, 6-6, 7-5 at the Pinstripe Bowl. I'll go with the U Hurricanes. North Carolina State, 9-3 versus K-State in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. You got to be fucking kidding me about that one. I'll go with the Kansas State Wildcats. Arizona Wildcats versus the Oklahoma Sooners in the Alamo Bowl in San Antonio. I'll go with the Sooners. My son, his two teams are A&M and OU, so I'll go with the Sooners in that one. Starting on the 29th, you got Clemson 8-4 versus Kentucky. I almost said Kent. Kentucky 8-4 versus 7-5 on the Gator Bowl. I'll take Clemson in that. Oregon State 8-4 versus Notre Dame in the Sun Bowl out in El Paso. A hometown friend of mine, Chris Jones, is a new defensive assistant coach there at UTEP. So I'm going to give a congratulations to my brother Chris Jones out of Brownwood, Texas, our hometown. You got the Memphis Tigers 9-3 versus Iowa State in the Liberty Bowl. Speaking of hometown, a hometown guy, Josh Ergel, he was originally from Brownwood, and then he went on to play and coach for the Memphis Tigers. So I got to give some hometown credit. I got to give a hometown connection, if you will, to that one. You got Missouri 10-2 versus Ohio State at the Cotton Bowl. The Palace in Dallas, I got the Ohio State Buckeyes in that, 11-1 over 10-2. And then starting on December the 30th, Ole Miss, I fucking can't stand Lane Kiffin. I cannot stand him. I despise Lane Kiffin. In the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl in Atlanta versus Penn State, they're both 10-2. I got the Nittany Lions in that one. I got Auburn 6-6 over Maryland 7-5 in the Music City Bowl right there in Nashville. And what is that, Nissan Stadium? I got the Georgia Dogs versus Florida State 12-1 versus 13-0 in the Capital One Orange Bowl. A&M got that bowl game in 2020 where they got screwed out of the top four, and the Georgia Bulldogs got screwed out of the top four. They're the designated road team, just like Texas A&M was in that one. So I'll pick the Georgia Dogs to beat the Florida State Seminoles. You got Toledo versus Wyoming, 11-2 versus 8-4 in the Arizona Bowl. I'll go with the Cowboys in that one. Starting with the New Year's Day, Wisconsin versus 7-5 versus LSU in the ReliaQuest Bowl. I'll go with LSU in that one. Liberty 13-0 versus Oregon in the Fiesta Bowl. Liberty is not going to they've never faced a team like that. Oregon 11-2. Iowa 10-3 versus Tennessee 8-4 Citrus Bowl. And Alabama, as you heard that, the Rose Bowl, I'm going to go with them over Michigan. And I've got Washington over the Sugar Bowl. So what I wanted to do, as I mentioned earlier, let's move this out the way. This is something that I've not ever done before. And my favorite cold beverage, everybody, is Troy Aikman's 8 Elite Light Lager. So this is a shout out to him. And I got to give some music as well on this one. Let's go ahead and how did I want to close this out? Oh, where's it at? Where is it at? Where's it at? Here it is. So I wanted to have a beverage right here. Oh my gosh, this is the best beer. If you haven't had it, you are definitely missing out. You are definitely missing out. See how good of a pour that is? And let's go ahead and take a swallow. So good. As always, tell a family member. tell a friend. And until next time, I will catch you on the next segment. This is the Chad Valdez YouTube channel.